Well, it's my great pleasure to be here with the legendary Natasha Donn from formerly the Portugal resident, now the resident, of course, Natasha,
Yep.
and our first outing of the news review. So, first and foremost, it's lovely to speak to you in person. I love reading your contributions and your news items in the Portugal resident. I've always admired your writing style and how you go about it. So lovely to meet you. Muito prazer.
Thank you. Muito obrigada.
So we're going to look at three of your favoured. I was going to say favourite. They might not be favourite.
Well, no, they just sort of jumped out at me. That one of them, obviously, because I have many animals,
Yes.
and one of them was just so awful, and I just thought, oh, this is the most terrible thing. But I thought there must be a message that I could give people, and the message is: if you're going to Lisbon, wear gumboots.
Okay, we'll leave that hanging there as a little bit of a teaser on that first item, because I think I'm not alone in wanting to find out a little bit more about you. People know your name, they know your writing. And the beauty of us doing a podcast together, which will be happening every week, we'll do a news review with you, you'll pick 3 stories. And I hope people will write into us and ask us questions as well. But I think people would like to know a little bit more about you, or maybe it's just me being nosy. But how did you get to be in Portugal? And what's your normal? Presumably you don't have a normal day, but what's it like? You know, a day in the life of Natasha Donn at the resident. So first and foremost, how did you get to be in Portugal in the first place?
Well, when you said that you were going to ask me questions like this, it literally kept me awake all night. Because
sorry.
No, because the stories and the mistakes and the decision making that ended with me being in Portugal is just too bizarre to even mention. But anyway, I got here in 1988 with a very small baby. The plan was never to stay here. And now we're in 2025. I've since that very small baby had 2 more. And they are actually Portuguese babies, and they're now men. I've had the most wonderful journey, but it was all completely and utterly unplanned. And that's the one thing I wonder, if only I had planned something, maybe I don't know what would have happened. But anyway, from having planned nothing, this is where I am now.
Here you are, and writing for the resident. How do you describe your role at the resident?
Oh, just writing. Just
Lead
writing, literally. Writing and keeping well out of everything, because anything I say tends to throw a curveball into discussions. So I'm kept well out of every decision, well out of, I had no idea, for instance, that the resident was changing to the resident, you know, having been the Portugal resident and the Algarve resident and all those things. I had no idea that the website was changing. And I never have any idea of anything. It's just presented to me, and I'm told to just keep going. Which
yes, and you create the news. You create the news. Here it is. It's the new look, isn't it? The resident. I love it. I love the typography.
Yeah, I love the website. When I saw it, I thought, "Oh, what's happened?"
Yes.
But you know, the funny thing is that I was around when the resident began. In, I guess it's about 89.
It is. Well, that's the strap line here, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I didn't see. I haven't looked at the
newspaper for expats since 1989. So you're
exactly. Well, there you go. Well, I was there at the beginning, because it was a completely different outfit.
Right.
And I was there, and I was writing then. And then the editor of the time, who was very interesting man with lovely curly hair, because I remember I used to have to sit behind him and I used to look at his beautiful curly hair. But then he decided, or something happened, and suddenly they made me editor. And that was quite a horrific experience. Right. But at the time, I had the most fantastic young man working as the only reporter, probably, because we were based then in Prada Rocha. And he was fantastic. I mean, he did the most ridiculous things. He did what real journalism is all about. He climbed trees in order to try and listen in on meetings. You know, he was just the most wonderful guy in the world. And so we had a lot of fun. But the man that owned the newspaper found us all very exhausting. And I think also because Dominic was also very, he wasn't trained. I actually came here luckily fully trained, but I wasn't planning to be a journalist here at all. But anyway, Dominic wasn't trained. So there were lots of things he did that were against all the rules. And the man that was running the paper at the time was getting more and more exhausted, more and more tired. And then eventually, I think he just decided to sell it. Dominic went to America to work, and he decided to sell it. And I was pregnant anyway, which I was sort of like, thank God. And then somebody said, when I was in those days, there were no maternity clothes here to speak of. So I went to work in a pair of yellow and black pajamas. And I remember being at some machine, and the new owners came in. And they looked at
you in your pajamas. Brilliant.
In my pajamas with this enormous stomach. And then I heard something about saying, well, we won't be taking any staff when we got the paper. I thought, well, thank God for that, because obviously I wanted to be with by then I would have had 2 children, and I knew I had to sort of slow down a bit.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just been a journey.
The memories, fantastic. Yeah, right, incredible. Some of the Portugal residents' history there. Yeah. And what is a regular day like for you? You're not the editor anymore. The wonderful
thank God. Inez is fantastic. She's the best editor you could ever have. I'm so happy working under her, and I love every minute of it. But I unfortunately, after my husband died, I sort of had this moment where I thought, oh, I can make my own decisions. And I made a lot of very silly decisions. So I've ended up with 7 cats and 3 dogs.
Yes, who are part of the podcast. You will hear them. It's very Portuguese. You will hear barking dogs in this podcast, which is a very nice, authentic Portuguese touch, Natasha.
Very cool. Exactly. But they are banished. I mean, I've shut the door so they can't come in, because otherwise they'd be jumping all over the place. So what happens, my normal day has to be very early. It starts really early because I have to take the dogs to the beach before I start work.
Obviously.
So basically my normal day is alarm 6:30, beach by 7, get back. Then I try and do a little bit of socializing because I'm otherwise a complete hermit. So I see a great girlfriend in a cafe and we have a good old laugh about everything. And then I try and get to my desk by 10. And then I just work flat out. At some point in the afternoon, I take the dogs to the forest. And then I come back, work again. And then it's dinner time and I have to make dinner and feed everybody. And that's just every day. It's sort of Groundhog Day.
Well, lovely to learn more about you. I'm really looking forward to talking to you every week with the 3 stories that have attracted your attention. This is the current front page as well, to which you will, of course, have contributed. So just having a look at the virtual front page of our paper there, The Resident. That's today's news and how it looks right now as we go into the weekend. It's the 21st of November. Yes. And this week then you've picked out the first story, which you said, wear your gumboots.
Wear your gumboots to Lisbon. I was horrified by this story because the thing is having been here for really almost the best part of 40 years now, because my daughter, when I came, was 3 months and she's now about to be 38. So, amazing. when I came, this was a very simple place. You could only get 1 breakfast cereal and there were all kinds of mishaps, bridges fell and things like that. But since then, and obviously since becoming part of Europe, we've tried to appear to become a great deal more regulated, and there are rules now for everything. So this is why this story really hit me. It's something is happening in Lisbon with the streetlights. And on one night in Odivelas and Parque das Nações, 2 people out with their dogs had the horrible the experience of seeing their dogs electrocuted as they passed on the wet pavement underneath streetlights. And apparently, according to this story, Reg and AML, which means the camera, they're looking into what caused this. But the fact that it happened to 3 dogs in one night, and as one of the dog owners said, it could have been a child.
Right.
luckily, most people are not walking their children in the night. But this
Well,
is
I was walking my children. We went to the oceanarium on Tuesday. Well,
well,
Wednesday.
taking gumboot. Make sure they're wearing
I'm
gumboot.
going again today to this very place
Oh
to
no!
the Lisbon Games Week is on at the Phil at our
Ah,
International Exhibition Centre. So I should be very careful. But yeah, so people
very
like their
careful. Wear gumboots.
this is outrageous, isn't it? And as you
It's
say,
horrendous.
not what you'd expect to see from a sort of public safety point of view. And presumably they've
It's
sorted this
just
out. I imagine the big flooding was short circuiting to some street lighting, and that's what caused the problem.
yeah, it could be. It could be underground stuff, underground water getting into the cables, couldn't it? But I mean,
Absolutely.
so many weird things are happening with all the weather. I mean,
Yeah.
sinkholes opening up, and it's all. I think it's the time to have gumboots.
It is. It is. So there's one of Natasha's
So
tips.
that's one of my tips for
A
this week.
lifestyle hack. Be careful out there in the flooding and make sure you're insulated with your gum boots, which, yes, that those would be the rubber boots, the Wellington boots. I don't know what they're called
Wellingtons.
around the world. Yeah, gum boots,
I
Wellington
think they
boots.
call them here botas de borracha, which is
Or-
rubber boots.
Okay. All right. Rubber boots,
Rubber boots. Yeah,
recommended at
yeah.
the moment. And yes, by the way, behind me is my town of São Martinho de Porto. Which part of Portugal are you in?
I am in Algesur, which is technically the Algarve, but it isn't the Algarve. It's more like the Alentejo, but it's
Okay.
just literally where the last what do they call them, municipality, and
Yeah.
then there's a bridge to the Alentejo. In fact, I often go to the Alentejo like to buy ghee or to go to the dentist or whatever.
That's a very unusual thing that I wasn't expecting to hear today. I go to the Alentejo to buy ghee.
Well,
Okay, we may come back
Alentejo
to that.
is filled with obviously Indian shops because there's so
Okay, of
many Indians
course. Yes,
there.
yes, yes,
Because it's
yes.
full of Indians working in the
Farms.
greenhouses.
Yes,
The
yes, yeah.
greenhouses on the Costa Vicentina, because I'm on the Costa Vicentina. So if
Okay.
you want good ghee, you need to go to the Alentejo. And
Well, then.
good ghee is a very good thing to have.
Right, there you go. Another tip. This is such good value. So the first story we've looked at there, wear your gumboots to the capital until they've sorted that out.
Where are your
Where should we
gumboots?
go next?
Well, I mean, this was something that Inez was really indignant about. It was it's just another fraud. I mean, we have fraud and corruption so much that actually it's quite boring. And sometimes you just think, oh, I'm going to forget this fraud. It's just it's so boring. But anyway, there's this particular fraud is a doctor who's been in business for ages. And apparently she's been pretending that her clients or managing to persuade the SNS health service that all her clients are diabetic and therefore they have to have things like Ozempic. But I think there are other things as well. There are other drugs as well, not just Ozempic. I think Victoza and Trulicity, all these kind of appetite suppressants. And she's managed to get a lot of money from her, apparently, allegedly, make a lot of money from her consultations, and then the patients are given a prescription on the SNS. So instead of spending, let's say, €106 for their shot of Ozempic or their weekly dose of Ozempic, they have been spending 10. So the SNS Health Service, which has a
picking up
budget
the difference.
of 1.3 billion. So we can't say it has been diddled out of so much, because it's been diddled only out of 3 million. But it's all drip into the bucket, because as one of now somebody said this, I think it's an INEM chap. I had it in a piece on one of my news.
Where are we with this? This is an accusation or it's a conviction? Where are we with this particular?
Oh well, she's gone home on a very high bail. She's at home in Matosinhos on bail of 500,000. Yeah, right. The PJ guy who investigated said that this case was just a gota d'água. Gota d'água num oceano de fraude in the SNS. So in other words, it's a tiny little drop of water in an ocean of frauds. And you see, if you think about it, the SNS has an ever-increasing budget, and it's now up to about 1.3 billion a year. But it's also pretty catastrophic and chaotic. if you really need an operation, you're not going to get it. You basically, if you really need an operation, unless you've just been cut in half by a dumpster truck, they'll quit. Then they will
For
obviously
example,
get you straight into the
yes.
operating room. But if you're just hobbling about on a bad hip, you could wait forever.
Okay, so another life hack, and sorry to use that, given the example,
I
the
know.
life hack for you there is to go private. Would that be your suggestion?
I honestly don't think there are some occasions. There was a wonderful moment when, funnily enough, it was with Socrates, where he said no one could wait more than 9 months for an operation. And at the time, my youngest son, needed an operation to his nose. It was something to do with a septum, deviated septum, and he was always getting blocked nose, and he slept with his mouth open, and it was all sorts of things. And so at that time, it was brilliant, because you knew from the minute you got earmarked for an operation, you would only wait 9 months.
Yes.
So we did have an operation. And what was marvelous then was that if the local hospitals couldn't take you, which they couldn't because they were still running around, with mops and buckets because it had rained, they gave you what was called a check or a vowel, and you could go to the private hospital. So yes, in those days, it was great. You could have an operation on the SNS in a private hospital. But I don't think it's as good as that now. I think now
it's under incredible pressure, isn't it? It's under incredible pressure.
Unbelievably shambolic. But not just that. I mean, we're a country where we're trying to encourage the Portuguese to have babies.
Yes.
And yet at the same time, every time they ring up and say, I'm having a pain, they say, well, stay home. Stay home. Yeah. It's not time yet. And then, of course, they rush to the hospital and have it on the road. In
the lobby,
in
the ambulance. We're seeing more photographs of paramedics or the INEM staff, the bomberos delivering babies, aren't we?
I did mention it yesterday in a story. We're expecting the bombeiros, who are the most wonderful people in the world, and they really are the most wonderful people in the world. We're expecting the bombeiros to be able to deliver babies, which they do. A friend of mine had her baby on a roundabout on the way to Portimao, again with the bombeiros from Algesur. But we don't expect doctors to put out fires. So why are we doing this?
Well,
Why do we do this? Why do we expect these people who work so hard and are trained to keep the country safe? Why are we expecting them to look after the future generations?
Yes, it's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It makes me very, very upset.
Well, and I think I notice that a paediatrician had said the hospital is the only place to have a child.
No, that was the silly old health minister, and God knows why she's still around. I mean, they keep saying, I refuse to resign. It's not intelligent to keep saying this. Everything is against her. I mean, there's this dear man who's, when I say running for president, I mean, if he was running, you wouldn't see him. He's so tiny. But he is probably the
What's that noise? It's that chap running for the president.
Yeah, running. Yes. But anyway, bless his heart. He is probably the one person whose brain is the best connected to be the president of this country, because he's such a careful, thoughtful, explosive character.
The sort of person you want in the role of the father of the country.
Apart from the fact that he's so tiny. But
you can't help that, Natasha, can you?
No, I know. I said this to my, as I call him, my permanent visitor, and he was very cross with me, and he said, you can't be that, dismissive of people. But my feeling, and again, probably wrong, is that if you're going to be the president of a country, you need to have some
majesty.
Yeah, you need to have some. Anyway, this man who's called Luis Marques Mendes, and he used to be the head of the PSD, and he's an advisor to President Marcel on the Conselho. I can't remember what it's called, but the Conselho de Estado, that's it. He actually said last week, enough is enough. We've had too many of these births. It's time for the health minister to address the country. Since then, we've had another ambulance birth and a baby born at a service station in Lule, and the woman is as silent as the grave.
Yes, maybe it's
time. And she's the one. And she's the one that said you should be having your babies in hospital, which is ridiculous, because because I know, because my daughter had a baby in her sitting room in a like a big, lovely, warm bath.
Birthing pool? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an inflatable thing. I
Yeah.
was there afterwards to sort of help clear it out, but it was this inflatable thing. And she had the most wonderful experience. Her boyfriend at the time was happy. They were together. The baby came out and he was wonderfully, he just came into the world in such a wonderful way. So
Yes.
I think actually what this government should be doing is saying, look, we're not doing very well. So please, anyone who wants to be a midwife, anyone, come along. We'll give you your license and a rubber baby paddling pool.
Well, home births, I suspect, were the vast majority of births in Portugal at one time. Not necessarily in birthing pools. That's quite a modern development, isn't it? But many people would have been born at home in Portugal. So maybe it's time to revisit that and not be so pompous about the idea of everybody having to get to hospital, which they get too late in some instances. We're finding out. But that's a bit of a distraction. This, I think, I need to. Well, no, not at all.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that, distracting people.
Yes, you're succeeding with me, but there are a couple of things I want to backtrack on. When Socrates was mentioned, that was Socrates, the former prime minister, not the famous philosopher who had a
former prime minister who's ducking and diving and trying to get out of all his corruption in
right.
prosecution.
Which is still ongoing, as I understand it. So a former prime minister, not the philosopher who had a view on the Portuguese health system. And I should add as well, with this particular situation here, we are talking about allegations, aren't we? We're not talking about prosecution yet. So alleged fraud.
Well, yes, of course we're talking about allegations, but I think that in this case, it's relatively clear that this is what's been happening.
A drop in the ocean in a sea of fraud, as somebody else.
Ocean of fraud.
Ocean fraud.
That's said by the. Well, this is the wonderful thing about law here. I mean, yes, you're right. We are meant to say alleged and all of that, but when the PJ announced these arrests, there's never any hint of allegation.
Let's wait and see.
Absolutely slam dunk,
Very good. Okay, your final news pick then. You're looking at
the final one. It has to be talked about because if I really think about news in Portugal, we get bombarded with idiotic news every single day. Things like. I don't know, just things that are not that interesting.
Presidential candidate who wants to give everybody free wine via a tap. That's
isn't that lovely?
Oh, that's a good one, I think.
Yeah, but we get all this sort of idiotic news, or Cristiano Ronaldo's, sitting with Donald Trump or whatever. But what we never really explained in a joined up way is all the plans that are sort of fizzling away to leap onto what they call the energetic transition. And these plans, if you join them all up, there's very little left of Portugal. Portugal's natural resources. I mean, they're covering hectares and hectares, or want to, in I think it's Fundão, Penamacor, and somewhere else. They want to cover them in solar panels. They're going to destroy countless really beautiful protected trees. They're going to destroy countless habitats of numerous endangered species. And that's just one mega project. There are mega projects everywhere, and people are fighting them, and they are now beginning to really, really fight. The indignation is incredible. So the latest public consultation, and normally these public consultations, they do them and they give you 3 weeks to say what you think, and they do what they want anyway. But this particular public consultation, there's no way they can go forwards because there were 11,000 participations. And of course, there will not have been people saying, oh, I think this is a marvelous idea. There have been so many people explaining why this particular solar park would be catastrophic, devastating. And there was something that I picked out when I was thinking what to say to the subjects to talk about today. This one person who was part of the No to Mining in Montalegre, and this is what she said. And I thought, wow, Good girl. She said, it's time to show the EU and our government that we will not accept that our territory, our landscapes, and our communities are sacrificed in the name of a false energetic transition. Let us not confuse energy transition with environmental destruction. A transition that destroys hundreds of hectares of natural resources, increases the risk of erosion, threatens watercourses, and transforms natural areas into technological deserts is not green. It is just another business venture at the expense of the country's interior. And you see, the thing is...
yes, I can't help but agree with that.
Exactly. She's the best thing she could have said. But the thing is that people who are awake and are understanding all these projects and joining them all up together are working out that what's happened with Portugal is that the EU has said, okay, look, we've given you all these subsidies and given you all these roads, but now you've got to give us your pound of flesh. And basically, Portugal is being turned into a sort of corridor, an energetic corridor that will be feeding all parts of Europe and all parts of wonderful new plans for the energetic transition. But it doesn't mean that they're actually thinking about the integrity.
The local picture. Yeah, the local integrity, the natural integrity. Okay, can I rewind a little bit? Because you preface this with when these various projects are brought together or similar. So by that you mean, so we've got eucalyptus, we've got lithium, and now we've got photovoltaic farms,
and you've got wind farms, stamping all over the landscapes. Again, I mean, these wind farms create terrible disruption to local habitats. And then there's this weird gray area, is what do we do because these wind farms are only working at full capacity for a certain amount of years, and then as the years go by, they become less and less efficient. And who's going to take down these massive structures?
Well, no one's thought of that yet, have they?
And where are they going to go? Where are they going to be recycled?
Yes. So this a patchwork, if you like, of things that haven't been thought through thoroughly, possibly, and they're joining up to make what we love as a beautiful landscape a rather ugly scenario. And this is no longer the domain of what was called the tree hugger. This, like, everyday people are objecting to this, aren't they? This is what we're seeing.
This is what's so fantastic. And I, funnily enough, got a source for information who is, I mean, such a fabulous person, obviously. And they are an ex-60 Minutes researcher from America. They seem to find information.
A heavyweight.
Yes. And so, in other words, it's not just people who live here and are Portuguese that are really upset. It's people who've chosen to live here and are seeing what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's 1 in 10 people now, pretty much, isn't it? The foreigner lobby is big and becoming more vociferous by the sound of it.
I don't know if that's the case, because most of the big projects are led by Portuguese,
Right.
Okay. They are. And I mean, the wonderful people in Boticas, the people who are fighting the lithium mine, they're all Portuguese. I don't think
there's
think there's anybody out. I don't know. Where are you based in Portugal?
I'm on the Silver Coast, and the picturesque Silver Coast.
I never really know what the Silver Coast is. What does it mean?
Well, it's made up, isn't it? It is a marketing fabrication, but I'm between Nazaré and Caldas.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't think you get that many foreigners up by Montalegre and in those areas, because it's much tougher, much colder, much more rural.
But it sounds like the people are not having it, which is
they're fantastic.
There's a pushback here. Is there any connection? Seeing reports of Greta Thunberg being in Portugal, is there a connection here?
I have honestly no idea. I literally saw that. I found it. I think I was just going to bed and I saw something about Greta Thunberg with a knapsack, maybe spotted in Portugal. So I haven't even looked at that yet.
In the supernatural town of Troncamento. I don't know if there's a connection with that. Yeah, and one other thing, we're only meant to be doing 30 minutes, but you're just far too interesting, Natasha. So if I can have a few more minutes of your time.
Sure.
You made a case for, you've had your money from the EU, Portugal. Now we want payback. We want to be a powerhouse for the rest of Europe. That's the agenda you're unpicking or seeing with this, are you?
I think that's what's going on. Yeah,
Right.
because you see, if you think about it, the energy that we're creating is all going into the grid that's shared with Spain, and now we're having more connections so that the energy goes to France.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically being used as a sort of service corridor.
Wow, I hadn't seen it like that, but
And if
that's a
you
bit chilling, isn't it?
think about also all these mega monocultures. I mean, all in Barão São João, for instance, where I was living for a very long time, there are 2 massive avocado plantations, and there's no avocados being sold in Barão São João from that plantation. They all go to another country. They go to Spain. They go here. They go
Doesn't
there.
make sense, does it?
We're used. We're being used, and
Well, that brings us to the
everybody
whole
knows.
idea of sorry, that brings us to the whole idea of energy transition. I think that was the phrase you used, and some doubt with that. You know, there's a political agenda perhaps for
Well,
energy.
people are calling it a false energy transition, because the reason it's false is that in order to have green energy, you have to destroy the environment. Well, that does not make sense.
That's
Yeah,
a marvelous,
it doesn't make sense.
grounded, common sense note to end on. Natasha, you've been brilliant.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to your next 3 picks. We'll be doing this every Friday. So when you're hearing this, it will be later on a Friday afternoon to take
Yes.
into your weekend with you. Do send news stories to us to take a look at, but we will lead with Natasha's 3 picks of the week. And I'm so grateful to you and lovely to have met you, Natasha.
And the dogs didn't bark.
They did a little bit,
Oh,
but
okay.
like
I
I
didn't
said,
hear
no,
that.
they were very good. Sorry, I don't mean to be pedantic, but they were very good, and it was that authentic Portuguese touch. If you're coming to Portugal, if you live in Portugal, you need to get used to dogs barking in the background. So, Natasha, to you, your cats, and your dogs, bon fin de semana, and thank you very
You
much.
too. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye. Bye bye.